So it turns out the Book of Boba Fett has a lot more to offer than I initially gave it credit for. Initially I thought just a really good edit would get the show humming to where it needed to be. But then I realised all the seeds of brilliance are there, they just weren't well executed. So in this video I'm going to talk about setup and payoff, and by using 3 examples, how the Book of Boba Fett really fucked this up. It gives me no pleasure to be dissecting one of my favourite characters on the altar of film understanding. But anywho, number 1, Fennec and Boba Fett's relationship. There was tremendous potential here. You've got 2 bounty hunters allegedly at the top of their game, both known for very different things. Boba Fett is a ruthlessly efficient bounty hunter and enjoys disintegrating things, while Fennec is a master assassin, quiet, covert, and surgical. But then all Fennec amounts to is a glorified advisor to an old man who's got no idea what he's doing anymore. This is a terrible use of both characters, and it's such a waste. So I'm going to highlight an example of how they could have done this right. In the episode where Fennec and Boba Fett go to get Slave 1, that's right, Slave 1, back from Jabba's palace, this was a perfect opportunity to demonstrate how different they were as operators. Boba Fett traditionally would have kicked in the front door and blown everyone to Kingdom Fuck, but he's without his armour, hence why he needs the assistance of Fennec. Makes sense. While Fennec would prefer to sneak in through the shadows, maybe take out the security systems and then slip away before anyone noticed that she's there. During the planning phase, the two could have been at odds about how to achieve this. Boba Fett, the more experienced of the 2 bounty hunters, concedes that he would be limited without the use of his armour, and they decide to go with Fennec's plan. After sneaking in a little bit more covertly, rather than a brightly lit drain right next to the front door, they make their way inside the palace, only to find that there's more guards than they anticipated, because Fennec didn't have a magic bullshit device that could detect everybody. This helps to build suspense. Fennec starts to realise that she's got more than she's bargained for, but Boba Fett's not leaving without his ship. So rather than being a passive tourist in his own show, he comes up with a decisive plan that will utilise both Fennec's and his strengths. Boba Fett is renowned throughout the galaxy as the most ruthless and efficient bounty hunter, to the arm of Lord Vader for fuck's sake. So he uses this to his advantage when he kicks in the door to the hangar and announces,
"Do you know who I am? I am Boba Fett."
While this is happening, and the random henchmen are freaking out because Boba Fett's come back to claim his ship, Fennec slips into the shadows and finds a way around to Slave 1. From here a firefight can break out, and Boba Fett realises that he may have overstepped in this instance, only to be saved by Fennec, who manages to operate Slave 1's turrets in time. As the 2 escape in Slave 1, Boba Fett concedes that perhaps Fennec has a few ideas that might be useful to him, and would certainly benefit from having her alongside until he gets his armour back. These slight alterations allow both characters to look and act their parts, and also sow seeds of doubt for future conflict between the 2 and how they'd like to operate. From here you could have both bounty hunters trying to one-up each other for the rest of the series. It'd be awesome to demonstrate how capable Fennec and Boba Fett are in different modes. Culminating in the final episode of the series, where both characters get to demonstrate their archetypes. You've got Boba Fett facing down an entire army in need of more firepower, while Fennec slips away only to take out the hierarchy and end the conflict there and then. You could even have Boba Fett being begrudgingly thankful to Fennec for cutting off the head of the Pikes, but also impressing on her that he didn't really need her help. This would show both characters in their element, and fixes one of Disney's biggest problems in consistency of character, which I've spoke about in a different video. Setup and payoff. Number 2, the Tuscan Raiders. Fan reaction has been mixed to the Tuscan Raider thing. I personally thought it was a little bit silly that he did a dance with Tuscans and then fundamentally changed who he was as a person, but anyway. Without drastically changing the script of the show, this can be tweaked so that this works in a much more effective setup and payoff. So after escaping the Sarlacc pit, Boba Fett wanders in his armour for a brief period of time before getting set upon by Tuscan Raiders. He's dehydrated and weak from being in the Sarlacc pit, so naturally he's overpowered and taken prisoner. We don't need to see the Jawas stripping him of his armour. We're aware that they end up with it. The audience is smart enough to figure this out. So Boba Fett is used as a slave to mine for water, or whatever else the Tuscans want to do with him. Then, playing down how weak he is because he's a smart and ruthless man, and he's sent away to mine for water with a small child and another prisoner, he seizes his opportunity to escape. The 2 men break free, and then Boba Fett uses the confusion to make a break for it. Hey, he's ruthless and efficient, what did you expect? Only to be set upon by the monster. This scene plays out more or less the same, with Boba Fett taking down the monster to have the Tuscan child in awe of the man standing before him. Boba Fett spares the child, but doesn't go back to the Tuscans. Instead, he flees into the desert. You can still have the swoop bike guys ransacking the canteen, and that's when Boba Fett comes in and ruins their day, steals their equipment, and makes his way back to Mos Espa. Once he's in Mos Espa, he can learn that the Pikes are running the show, and that's problematic, and he's not a big fan of that. Once again, all the events play out as per the Book of Boba Fett TV show, before in the culmination in the final episode, the Tuscans come from the desert to assist Boba Fett in his fight. It's almost like the child went back to his parents and told them about the man who had saved his life. The Tuscans, being randomly set upon by the Pike's trains, see the benefit in assisting Boba Fett in this instance, and an uneasy partnership is born between Boba Fett and the Tuscan Raiders. Hell, maybe the chief or chiefette. Tuscan even grants Boba Fett a bantha stick for saving their son's life. I know this causes problems with the Mandalorian when he turns up with a big stick and bashes up stormtroopers, but is anyone going to really care if it's a different stick? And robe. I mean, I'm sure he found something to cover himself from the harsh Tatooine suns. It doesn't have to be some deeply symbolic black Tuscan robe. It can just be a black robe. Set up and payoff. Number 3, and what I see is the biggest problem of the TV show, Cad Bane. And when I say the biggest problem of the show, I don't mean that it's Cad Bane himself, I mean the antagonist of the franchise. The Book of Boba Fett lacked any real villains until almost the 11th hour, by which time it was too late for anybody to care. And from a storytelling perspective, it was really jarring, or perhaps din-jarring, to stop the show and literally have Cad Bane wander in from the desert into the frame. There are a bunch of casual fans out there who would have never seen Cad Bane before, so you need to do him a little bit more service than just having him turn up and hoping for the glorified hardcore fan reaction. Perhaps after Boba Fett escapes from the desert, he wants to go to the local saloon to wet his whistle. I mean, it's hot as hell there, why wouldn't you? And while he's there, he gets his ear to the ground listening out for work because he needs funds, because he just crawled out of a hole in the desert and has nothing to his name. It's here that he learns that there's a township in need of some assistance, and he heads out that way in order to claim the bounty, only to find that Din Djarin's already been and done it. This puts him right within touching distance of his armour.
Missed it by that much.
It's not to be, because we've seen it play out in The Mandalorian, so he comes back to the town looking for more work. It's here that he encounters a shadowy figure with a big broad-brimmed hat. Well, look what crawled out of the dirt. And I heard you were dead, Fett. Boba Fett meets his old acquaintance uneasily, but is thankful when Cad Bane sets him up with a bit of professional courtesy and sends him on the right way to look for his armour, hinting that he wants Boba Fett at full strength the next time they meet. We get a brief look into the two's checkered history before Cad Bane heads off on his way. The audience is left with an ominous feeling hanging in the air that Cad Bane is more foe than friend. Sidebar, part of the problem with the Book of Boba Fett is the convoluted timeline and the jumping back and forward. Cut to the present day, Boba Fett's got his armour back and he and Fennec are establishing themselves in Mos Espa. The story again plays out more or less the same as the Hutts hire bounty hunters in order to re-establish their dominance on Tatooine. After Black Chrysanthemum fails, we get a scene where the Hutts are hiring an additional bounty hunter who remains in shadow. What's the fee? From here on in, it's Cad Bane pulling all the strings from behind the scenes, including the explosion at the cantina. This establishes him as a serious player in the game, and it's not long before Boba Fett figures out who it is. This way, when Cad Bane strolls into the final episode with the gun on a hip and wants to have a shootout with Boba Fett, there's a lot more tension and meaning behind it. Not only is this the former greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy who mentored Boba Fett as a young man, but has also been a rival of Boba Fett his entire career. More so than that, he's been the cause of all Boba Fett's problems since he's become the daimyo of Tatooine. You didn't think I'd make it easy on you, did you, kid? This way, when they finally have their duel in the final episode, new fans and old fans have meaning behind it. It's a significant exchange, rather than a piece of fan service that got left on the cutting room floor of the Clone Wars. As Boba Fett stands over the dying old man, we get a glimpse into what his future might look like, and perhaps this is the trigger point for Boba Fett's change of character. He does not want to end up like Cad Bane, dying alone in some forgotten street on a backwater planet. We've seen his relationship with Fennec and Din Djarin grow throughout the series, and perhaps in Season 2 we'll get a look at Boba Fett who's softened as a character. This is a far more natural evolution for a character arc, rather than pulling him out of the Sarlacc pit, doing a dance with Tuscan Raiders and turning him into the man Disney wanted him to be because it was easier that way. Set up and payoff. Sometimes it takes time.
Patience.
And there you go. There's 3 setups and payoff that I think could have been done better in the Book of Boba Fett, rather than the fuck up that we actually saw. Look, I'm no screenwriter, I'm just a long-time Boba Fett fan, and I really feel like these changes would have enhanced the show. Not only for legacy Star Wars fans, but for casual fans who don't have the well of knowledge to draw upon and figure out who Cad Bane and Fennec are. And if I can structure these semi-coherent setup and payoffs, surely Disney, with all the power of their writing staff, can do it also. But remember, I'm just a brainless lump floating on the currents of wasted opportunity.
No disintegration.
Hooroo.